But do you think anything has happened in these past 6 games or so that has pushed the Jays more one way than the other? Like, to me, the only way we'll know, Shi, if this team is a seller is if Josh Donaldson is traded. Because to me, other than that, getting rid of Marco Strata, I'm not certain that's selling. Getting rid of Francisco Liriano, I don't know if that's necessarily selling. You want to talk about a full-scale retooling, Josh is the guy.
Right. And, I think if we see an Estrada deal or a Liriano deal, that might be more of that's a sort of a pulling on the plug on 2017, but not punting 18.
Right.
Moving Josh Donaldson is a punt of 18 as well.
Exactly.
And that's more significant. But we had Ross Atkins on with us on Baseball Central yesterday afternoon, and he made one suggestion that the multiple kinds of trades that they could be looking at, and one of them were just good old fashioned sort of baseball trades where you're just trading talent for talent and not necessarily looking for a piece that fits, but maybe taking from one area of surplus and moving to an area of need. And if you look at it right now, the one potential area of surplus, assuming Aaron Sanchez comes back and the blister issues for Marcus Stroman aren't significant, are maybe the starting rotation. And did the Jays try to do something there right now for a piece that's maybe a bit longer term? That's an interesting thought. But I really think the Blue Jays are all over the map right now in terms of what their different possibilities and alternatives are. I think the parallel tracks might be undoing it. They're operating under multiple tracks where they're examining potential short-term options in case this team suddenly gets hot, although there aren't a lot of signs that that's going to happen. Or if this team continues to go in a downward spiral, making some moves in that regard. And then also looking at ways that they can address some longer-term things. And what we've seen in some recent trade deadlines is clubs trying to get a jump on their off-season shopping at the deadline. Mm-hmm. And so I think the Blue Jays could be looking in all those veins right now.
As you look at this team and where it is right now, explain to me why. And this is where I think it gets a little. I don't know if it'd be counterintuitive, but bringing in a guy like Miguel Montero and assuming some money and and making that trade for cash considerations, bringing in a guy like Montero, even bringing Michael Saunders to AAA, and I understand that's a low-risk venture, but why bother doing that if, your team is kind of where they are right now? I mean, if you've already made a decision, why bother bringing those guys in? This is what to me suggests that the Jays haven't entirely made a decision yet. Because I don't know about you, but Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins don't strike me as the type of guys that are going to be dicking around with the Michael Saunders of this world if they think they're sort of in a rebuild or in the process of getting rid of talent.
Sure. I mean, the one thing to keep in mind is those guys are basically free, right?
Right.
And Montero, the Cubs are basically picking up everything except for a small chunk. It's not going to cost them any money. And I mean, you're running a guy out there with a 355 OPS or whatever it was. That's even on a backup basis. You can't really do that forever. So I can see that, but I see your point as well. And look, it's really difficult to imagine it right now, and the likelihood isn't very high. But if Josh Donaldson has a Josh Donaldson type of second half, and Troy Tulowitzki takes off, and Jose Bautista gets hot, and Russell Martin gets hot, and Justin Smoke keeps it going, and Kendry Morales produces, and Aaron Sanchez rejoins the rotation and is fine, and everything corrects there. Theoretically, they could still climb back into it. And, until you have to make that definitive call July 31st, why not give the group as much of an opportunity to try and turn it around? Again, it's not necessarily likely, especially based on what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. But if it's not costing you anything and you're not giving up assets, then you might as well try to win until the reality that you're not going to is firmly set in front of you.
One of the things that I think we also need to talk about, and needs to be in the background here, is the fact that, again, this team is going to be attracting 40,000 fans a night. It's going to draw more than 2.5 million this year. That's pretty apparent. Mark Shapiro has said to a variety of people, not just us, but other people, that, look, this isn't. I'm not getting pressure from anybody to strip this down or rebuild or make a move. Again, look out there. There's 40,000 fans a night. TV ratings are robust. How much do you think the fact that this is in some ways this is a commercial product for this company? How much do you think that'll weigh into Mark Shapiro's thinking? That realization that at the end of the day, and I think it comes especially when you talk about Josh Donaldson. I mean, you trade Jose Bautista for something, people are going to be up in arms, but I think they'll look at a team that's in last place and say, okay, you're getting rid of Jose Bautista. Same thing, if you're going to get rid of Marco Estrada for something, that's fine, you do that. But man, if you trade Josh Donaldson, now you're almost getting into a situation, Shai, where you're sort of getting to the consumer confidence.
Yeah, that's the nuclear option, right? And
yeah.
that's like, it's going to be a couple of years of pain before there's, in all likelihood, any sort of gain. And that's the one that's going to be tough for people to swallow. But I think the consideration, or one of the considerations too, is, not wholly that this team's a commercial product. Obviously, that's a factor. But I think also you have to look at the level of engagement you've had with a fan base across the country. The fact that it's a younger fan base, in some ways, from a demographical standpoint, it's a fan base that's the envy of a lot of teams in Major League Baseball because of how young it is relative to other fan bases. This is a group that's moneyed, that travels, that is deeply engaged in a number of mediums with this team.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do something to sacrifice that, how much do you lose, and potentially how long might it take you to get that back? And you have to tread very carefully, because this was a baseball market that struggled for a long period of time. They lost a lot of fans in 1994 after the strike, and it was sort of the perfect storm of negative. There was the strike happened. It soured some people. A team that had won 2 World Series entered a lengthy period of decline, and a lot of the stars that were familiar left, and then all of a sudden a fan base that was drawing 4 million, got to the point where it struggled to draw 2. So they have to tread very carefully to not do anything that might revisit such a scenario. And I don't think it'll happen quite as dramatically in that way. But you've got an amazing fan base right now, and you've got to be very careful that you don't risk damaging it in any sort of way.